Hey everyone, welcome back. Here's video 2 on forms in Beowulf. And by forms, I mean the genres that our narratives conform to, the conventions that they follow. That can help us understand a text as well. So in this video, we'll be focusing on those particular genres and features of Beowulf. So the first thing that we need to attend to when we're thinking about form is the particular kind of English that Beowulf is written in. So Beowulf is written in the oldest form of English that there is, from its earliest known origins. And so, the technical term for this is literally Old English. In the context video, we'll be talking a little bit more about some of the cultural surroundings of this language, so we'll come to that soon. But the Old English is English in its earliest form, and it's at this point primarily a Germanic kind of language. It sounds like German, it derives from German, and because it hasn't been influenced by some later language changes, it's pretty hard for us now to understand it. It's basically a foreign language that you would need to study and learn in order to understand. So, no surprise, we're not reading Beowulf in its original Old English, we're reading it in a modern translation. When it comes to the scope of Old English, it spans from the 5th century, which is around the time the Romans left the island of England and returned back to Rome to fight, their own invaders. That's around the time some new people come into England and establish this new language, to up to 1066. We'll talk a lot more about that change in 1066 in weeks to come. One feature that you can notice about Old English is that it has a few letters that we don't have anymore. And I'll be focusing specifically on the letter, the thorn. It looks like this. We don't have that in our alphabet anymore, but it makes the sound TH. Now, you can go back to one of the links that I provided earlier to listen to the opening lines of Beowulf, and you can hear it recited. But right here, I have the first 4 lines of Beowulf, which just seem to be worth reading right here. I've got this opening word, what, we gardena in year dagum, theod caninga, you've got that th, thrim ythrunen, hu tha athelingus, Ellen Fremedon. Oft shield shaving, sheathena threatum. So you can hear that th throughout with that different letter. Go back, listen to some Beowulf. Beowulf is the longest surviving narrative poem in Old English. And Old English also uses a certain structural device that we rarely use anymore, known as a caesura. Lines are divided with pauses. So if you're looking at the Old English original, you'll always notice this big space in between the lines. It's served as a kind of verbal pausing point. Now, when it comes to what this story is about, while it's told and written down in the British Isles, which is what we're studying in this class, it's actually not really about the British Isles. It's about seafaring characters in Scandinavia. We're talking about the Denmark region and the Gates, or kind of modern Sweden. That's really the regions that are being discussed, but it's kind of part of this broader seafaring culture of this time period. So it wouldn't have struck a British listener as that different from themselves. It's a lot of islands, lots of seafaring, etc. Beowulf also makes use of another Old English convention known as a kenning, which is a circumlocution, or a way of rewording something, that replaces one noun with a 2-noun synonym joined by a hyphen. So there's a lot of kennings in Beowulf, and I've located just a few of them that are in the first few lines. The Danes are referred to as the Spear Danes. The fellows of these Danes are referred to as Barstool Brothers. The ocean is referred to as a whale road. God is referred to as the Life Lord. And later on, Beowulf's own personal vocabulary is referred to as his word hoard. So these are all examples of kennings in which a noun is replaced by a 2-word noun that kind of says it in a different and surprising way. This is the poetic convention that Beowulf often uses because it's part of this Old English culture. Does Beowulf belong to a specific genre? Yes, it very much conforms to many of the features of an epic poem. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you to think of some classic, Greek narratives, the Iliad, the Odyssey. What do these stories tend to have in common? They tend to have a larger than life scale. It's not, like a plain domestic drama. It's about vast lands. It's about vast villains and huge heroes. Usually has mythical villains and a hero who is pursuing glory. It's kind of like very large stakes. And it's usually set in a past far distant from when it's being told. So even though Beowulf, is written down, let's say around the year 1000, the person writing it down even imagined Beowulf in a far distant past, even from that moment. So even people who heard the story when it was first written down imagined the story from a long time ago. Yes, that's all I have to say about form. So keep that in mind as you begin to make your way through Beowulf. The next video will be discussing the historical context of this tale.